Today I'm going to be doing an analysis of the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln. I definitely recommend you check it out. I'm not going to read it, but definitely recommend you check it out. So the Abraham Lincoln, for context, this address is during the Civil War. A bunch of people died in Pennsylvania during a war in Gettysburg, which was the biggest war in the Civil War. Many people died that day, and they did a memorial service for him, and they asked a bunch of people to speak, and Abraham Lincoln was one of them. And so he makes a main claim in this speech, which is less than 3 minutes long, that they should honor the people who lost their lives by finishing what they started and winning the war. He makes a couple subclaims, and those are what I'm going to be talking to you about today. So the first subclaim that he made was that United States was founded and dedicated to the proposition that all men were created equal. This is literally basically the first thing he says. Now, this was a very debatable topic back then. There was a war. People disagreed. The people who were pro-slavery really interpreted this phrase in the Declaration of Independence to mean that the people who are created equal are only white people. Whereas abolitionists, they really considered that phrase to mean that all people were created equal, no matter how you look. And so I think this claim is valid in word, because if the people who wrote the Declaration of Independence, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson, and people who validated it, if they wanted to say that, they would have, but instead they just said all men. However, this is invalid in action, because many people many of our forefathers, they had slaves, so they didn't really believe that all men were created equal if you have slaves, because you're kind of enslaving other people. So that's not really, it doesn't really, like, his claim that the United States was founded on that is not true, because that kind of belittles the Native Americans who suffered, and the black people who were enslaved, and any other non-white people who were racially treated unjustly. The second claim that Lincoln says is that people would not remember what he spoke, but that they would always remember the people who died. And that is clearly not true, because I am speaking about his speech right now. And it's actually one of his most famous speeches, probably his most famous speech. That's what I read. This was clearly an appeal to emotion, because he really wanted to encourage people to continue with the war by not letting the people who died, their labor, go in vain. This is valid because actually 750,000 people, according to most recent estimates, according to Eric Foner, who wrote Give Me Liberty, 150,000 people died during that war, which makes it the most people who died in an American war that has ever been fought. His third claim is that they should fight so that the government by the people for the people would not be lost. However, Abraham Lincoln did not start as an abolitionist. He actually claimed that he was not going to touch the slaves in the South. He was just aimed at preventing the slavery to spread west. However, as the Civil War went on and the Southern, I think they refused to compromise, the soldiers themselves, they started converting, because people who were not abolitionists, they started getting exposed to slavery, and they became horrified about the slavery. And then Lincoln himself, he realized that the only way to defeat the South was to attack their economic system, which was founded on slavery. So The idea that they should fight for, that the war was for the freedom of black people, so that the government could be by the people, for the people, because black people are people. It's not really true, because a lot of the people who were in the war, they were against slavery because of the economic problems that came with it. Wage workers found themselves competing for slave jobs, and they slave work for free, so obviously they get like the benefit. That it's not a benefit. Anyway, this also so I'm just gonna skip that. In conclusion, Abraham Lincoln made the forefathers seem perfect, which I disagree with, because they owned slaves. However, principle was right, because people are equal. However, if like they said people weren't equal, what then, you know? He was wrong about the assumption that people won't remember what he said, because clearly I'm speaking about right now. But his main claim that finishing what people who died started in order for the country to have more freedom and to be ruled by the people for the people, that was right, and it had much evidence to support it. Like, many people died, and it did lead to freedom for black people.